Balin and Balan. Not the Labal and Abalim under Paimon bringing 25 more legions apiece. Not the alternate name of Balam from the Gahtaya. Pelam, the king, who held and lost with Lot in that first war and had his realm restored, but rendered tributary, failed of late to send his tribute, wherefore Arthur called his treasurer one of many years and spake, Go thou with him, and bring it to us, lest we should see set one truer on his throne. Man's word is God and man. His barons said, We go, but hearken, there be two strange knights who sit near Camelot at a fountain side, a mile beneath the forest, challenging and overthrowing every knight who comes. Wilt thou, I undertake them as we pass, and send them to thee? Arthur laughed upon him. Old friend, too old to be so young, depart. Delay not thou for aught, but let them sit until they find a lustier than themselves. So these departed early one fair dawn. The light-winged spirit of his youth returned on Arthur's heart. He armed himself and went. So coming to the fountain side, beheld Balin and Balan sitting statue-like, brethren to right and left the spring that down from underneath a plume of lady fern sang, and the sand danced at the bottom of it, and on the right of Balin's horse was fast beside an alder on the left of Balan's near a poplar tree. Fair sirs, said Arthur, wherefore sit ye here? Balin and Balan answered, For the sake of glory. We be mightier men than all in Arthur's court. That also have we proved. For whatsoever knight against us come, he hath easily overthrown. I too, said Arthur, am of Arthur's hall, but rather proven in his Paynim wars than famous jousts. But see, are proven or not, whether me likewise ye can overthrow. And Arthur lightly smote the brethren down, and lightly so returned, and no man knew. Then Balin rose, and Balan, and beside the caroling water set themselves again, and spake no word until the shadow turned. When from the fridge of the coppice round them burst a spangled pursuivant, and crying, Sirs, rise, follow. Ye be sent for by the king. They followed, whom when Arthur seeing asked, Tell me your names, why set ye by the well? Balin the stillness of a minute broke, saying, An unmelodious name to thee. Balin the savage, that addition thine, my brother and my better, this man here. Balan, I smote upon the naked skull, a thrall of thine in open hall, my hand was gauntleted, half slew him, for I heard he had spoken evil of me. Thy just wrath sent me a 3 years' exile from thine eyes. I have not lived my life delightsomely, for I that did that violence to thy thrall, had often wrought some fury on myself, saving for Balan. Those 3 kingless years have passed, were wormwood bitter to me. King, methought that if we sat beside the well, and hurled to ground what knight soever spurred against us, thou wouldst take me gladlier back, and make as 10 times worthier to be mine than 20 Balins, Balan knight. I have said, not so, not all, a man of thine today, abash us both, and break my boast. Thy will, said Arthur, thou hast ever spoken truth. Thy too fierce manhood would not let thee lie. Rise, my true knight. As children learn, be thou wiser for falling. Walk with me and move to music with thine order and the king. Thy chair a grief to all thy brethren stands vacant, but thou retake it, mine again. Now, a greater champion would be one that doesn't start the fights all the time. One can be undefeated if one doesn't start fights sometimes, but be defeated, defeating more. Therefore, when Sir Balin entered hall, the loss one found was greeted as in heaven, with joy that blazed itself in woodland wealth, of leaf and gayest garlandage of flowers. Along the walls and down the board they sat, and cup clashed cup they drank, and some one sang, sweet-voiced, a song of welcome, whereupon their common shout and chorus mounting, made those banners of 12 battles overheard, stir as they stirred of old when Arthur's host proclaimed him victor, and the day was won. Then Balan added to their order, lived a wealthier life than heretofore with these, and Balin, till their embassage returned. Sir King, they brought report, we hardly found, so bushed about it is with gloom, the hall of him to whom ye sent us. Pellam, once a Christless foe of thine, as ever dashed horse against horse, but seeing that thy realm hath prospered in the name of Christ, the King, took as a rival heat to holy things, and finds himself descended from the saint Arimathon Joseph, him who first brought the great faith to Britain overseas. He boasts his life as purer than thine own, eats scarce and now, to keep his pulse a beat, hath pushed aside his faithful wife, nor lets our dame or damsel enter at his gates, lest he should be polluted. This grey king showed us a shrine, wherein were wonders, yea, rich arks with priceless bones of martyrdom, thorns of the crown, and shivers of the cross. And therewithal were this he told us, brought by holy Joseph thither, that same spear where the Roman pierced the side of Christ. He much amassed us after when we sought. The tribute answered, I have quite forgone all matters of this world. Garlon, mine heir, of him demanded, which this Garlon gave, with much ado, railing at thine and thee. Now, where does Jesus in the Bible say that, oh, I want to be the king? And doesn't it even say in the Pauline part of the Bible, if he had been incarnated, he wouldn't even been a king, But married life aren't the first 3 commandments we hear in the Bible? Get married, have sex, have children. Well, doesn't put it in those words, but really those are the first 3 commandments in the Bible. So holiness, not staying, casting aside one's wife, that's, well, I mean, it's a supported idea of Pauline Christianity, but it's weak in terms of the Bible as a whole. But when we left, in those deep woods we found a knight of thine, spear-stricken from behind, dead, whom we buried. More than one of us cried out on Garlon, but a woodman there reported of some demon in the woods, was once a man who, driven by evil tongues from all his fellows, lived alone and came to learn black magic and to hate his kind, with such a hate that when he died his soul became a fiend, which, as the man in life was wounded by blind tongues, he saw not whence, strikes from behind, this woodman showed the cave from which he sallies, and wherein he dwelt. We saw the hoofprint of a horse, no more. Then Arthur, let who goes before me see, he do not fall behind me, foully slain. And villainously, who will hunt for me, this demon of the woods? Said Balan, I. So claimed the quest and rode away, but first embracing Balin. Good my brother, hear, let not thy moods prevail when I am gone. Who used to lay them, hold them outer fiends, who left at thee to tear thee, shake them aside, dreams ruling when wit sleeps, yea, but to dream that any of these would wrong thee, wrongs thyself. Witness their flowery welcome, bound are they to speak no evil, truly save for fears. My fears for thee, so rich a fellowship, would make me wholly blessed. Thou one of them, be one indeed, consider them and all, their bearing in their common bond of love, no more of hatred than in heaven itself, no more of jealousy than in paradise. So Balan warned and went. Balin remained, who for but 3 brief moons had glanced away from being knighted till he smote the thrall, and faded from the presence into years of exile. Now would strictlier set himself to learn what Arthur meant by courtesy, manhood and knighthood, wherefore hovered round Lancelot. But when he marked his high sweet smile in passing and a transitory word, make knight or churl or child or damsel seem from being smiled at happier in themselves, sighed as a boy lame born beneath a height that glooms his valley, sighs to see the peak sun-flushed, or touch at night the northern star. For one from out of his village lately climbed, and brought report of azure lands and fair, far seen to left and right, and he himself hath hardly scaled with help 100 feet up from the base. So Balin, marveling oft, how far beyond him Lancelot seemed to move, groaned, and at times would mutter, these be gifts, born with the blood, not learnable, divine, beyond my reach. Well, had I forgotten well, in those fierce wars struck hard, and had I crowned with my slain self the heaps of whom I slew, so better but this worship of the queen, that honor too wherein she holds him. This was the sunshine that hath given the man a growth, a name that branches o'er the rest, and strength against all odds, and what the king so prizes over prizes, gentleness. Her likewise would I worship an I might. I never can be close with her as he that brought her hither. Shall I pray the king to let me bear some token of his queen, whereon to gaze, remembering her, forget my heats and violences, live afresh? What if the queen disdained to grant it? Nay, being so stately gentle, would she make my darkness blackness? And with how sweet grace she greeted my return, Bold will I be, some goodly cognizance of Guinevere, in lieu of this rough beast upon my shield, languid gules, and toothed with grinning savagery. And Arthur, when Sir Balin sought him, said, What wilt thou bear? Balin was bold and asked to bear her own crown royal upon shield. Whereat she smiled and turned her to the king, who answered, Thou shalt put the crown to use. The crown is but the shadow of the king. And this, a shadow's shadow, let him have it. So this will help him of his violences. No shadows, said Sir Balin, O my queen, but light to me, no shadow, O my king, but golden earnest of a gentler life. So Balin bare the crown, and all the knights approved him. And the queen and all the world made music, and he felt his being move. In music, with his order, and the king. The nightingale, full-toned in middle May, hath ever and anon a note so thin, it seems another voice in other grooves. Thus, after some quick burst of sudden wrath, the music in him seemed to change, and grow faint and far off, and once he saw the thrall his passion have, and gauntleted to death, that causer of his banishment and shame, smile at him as he deemed presumptuously. His half-arm rose to strike again, but fell. The memory of that cognizance on shield weighted it down, but in himself he moaned, Too high this mount of Camelot for me. These high-set courtesies are not for me. Shall I not rather prove the worse for these? Fierier and stormier, from restraining break, into some madness even for the queen. Thus, as a hearth lit in a mountain home, and glancing on the window, when the gloom of twilight deepens round it, seems a flame that rages in the woodland far below. So when his moods were darkened court and king, and all the kindly warmth of Arthur's hall shadowed an angry distance, yet he strove to learn the graces of their table, fought hard with himself, and seemed at length in peace. Then chanced one morning that Sir Balin sat close bowered in that garden nigh the hall. A walk of roses ran from door to door, a walk of lilies crossed it to the bower, and down that range of roses the great queen came with slow steps, the morning on her face, and all in shadow from the counter door Sir Launcelot, as to meet her, then at once, as if he saw not, glanced aside, and paced the long white walk of lilies toward the bower, followed the queen. Sir Balin heard her prince. Art thou so little loyal to thy queen, as pass without good morrow to thy queen, to whom Sir Launcelot, with his eyes on earth, fain would I still be loyal to the queen, yet so, she said, but so to pass me by, so loyal scarce is loyal to thyself, whom all men rate, the king of courtesy. Let be. Ye stand, fair lord, as in a dream. Then Launcelot, with his hand among the flowers, yea, for a dream, last night, methought, I saw that maiden saint, who stands with lily in hand. In yonder shrine, all round her pressed the dark, and all the light upon her silver face flowed from the spiritual lily that she held. Lo, these her emblems drew mine eyes away. For see how perfect pure, as light a flush, as hardly tints the blossom of the quince, would mar their charm of stainless maidenhood. Sweeter to me, she said, this garden rose, deep-hued and many-folded, sweeter still the wild wood hyacinth and the bloom of May. Prince, we have ridden before among the flowers, in those fair days, not all as cool as these. Though, season earlier, art thou sad or sick, our noble king will send thee his own leech. Sick, are, for any matter, angered at me. Then Lancelot lifted his large eyes. They dwelt, deep tranced on hers, and could not fall. Her hue changed at his gaze. So turning side by side they passed, and Balin started from his bower. Queen, subject, but I see not what I see. Damsel and lover, hear not what I hear. My father hath begotten me in his wrath. I suffer from the things before me now. Learn nothing, am not worthy to be knight. A churl, a clown, and in him gloom on gloom deepened. He sharply caught his lance and shield, nor stayed to crave permission of the king, but mad for strange adventure dashed away. He took the same self-track as Balan, saw the fountain where they sat together, sighed. Was I not better there with him? And rode the skyless woods, but under open blue came on the hoar-headed woodman at a bough, wearily hewing. Churl thine axe, he cried, descended and disjointed it at a blow. To whom the woodman uttered wonderingly, Lord, thou couldst lay the devil of these woods, if arm of flesh could lay him. Balin cried, Him, or the viler devil, who plays his part. To lay that devil would lay the devil in me. Nay, said the churl, our devil is a truth. I saw the flash of him but yester even. And some do say that our Sir Guerlain too hath learned black magic, and to ride unseen. Look to the cave. But Balin answered him, Old fabbler, these be fancies of the churl. Look to thy woodcraft. And so leaving him, now with slack rein, and careless of himself, now with dug spur, and raving at himself, now with drooped brow, down the long glades he rode. So mark not on his right a cavern chasm, yawn over darkness, where, not far within, the whole day died, but dying, gleamed on rocks, roof pendant sharp, and others from the floor, tusk-like, arising, made that mouth of night, whereabout the demon issued up from hell. He marked not this, but blind and deaf to all, save that chained rage, which ever yelped within, passed eastward from the falling sun. At once he felt the hollow beaten mosses thud, and tremble, and then the shadow of a spear, shot from behind him, ran along the ground. Sideways he started from the path, and saw, with pointed lance, as if to pierce, a shape, a light of armor, by him flash, and pass and vanish in the woods. And followed this, but all so blind and rage that unawares he burst his lance against a forest bough, dishorsed himself, and rose again, and fled far till the castle of a king, the hall of Palam, lichen-bearded, greyly draped, with streaming grass, appeared, low built but strong, the ruinous donjon as a knoll of moss, the battlement overtopped with ivy tods, a home of bats, in every tower an owl. Then spake the men of Palam, crying, Lord, why wear ye this crown royal upon shield? Said Balin, for the fairest and the best of ladies living gave me this to bear. So stalled his horse and strode across the court, but found the greetings both of knight and king. Faint in the low dark hall of banquet, leaves laid their green faces flat against the panes. Sprays grated, and the cankered boughs without whined in the wood, for all was hushed within, till when at feast Sir Garlon likewise asked, "Why wear ye that crown royal?" Balin said, "The queen we worship, Lancelot, I, and all." They don't mean that they take her as a god or something, as a goddess or something, but they, certainly with her lawful and forbidden in that respect, they would. Anyways, as fairest, best, and purest, granted me to bear it, such a sound for Arthur's knights, or hated strangers in the hall, as makes the white swan mother, sitting when she hears a strange knee rustle through her secret reeds, made Garlon hissing. Then he sourly smiled. "Fairest, I grant her, I have seen but best, purest, thou from Arthur's hall, and yet so simple hast thou eyes, or if are these so far besotted that they fail to see, this fair wife worship cloaks a secret shame. Truly, ye men of Arthur be but babes." A goblet on the board by Balin, bossed with holy Joseph's legend on his right, stood all of massiced bronze. One side had sea, and ship and sail and angels blowing on it, and one was rough with watling, and the walls of that low church he built at Glastonbury. This Balin grasped, but while in act to hurl, through memory of that token on the shield, relax his hold, I will be gentle, he thought, and passing gentle, caught his hand away. Then fiercely to Sir Garlon, eyes have I, that shot today the shadow of a spear. Shot from behind me, run along the ground, eyes, too, that long have watched how Lancelot draws from homage to the best and purest might, name, manhood, and grace, but scantly thine, who sitting in thine own hall canst endure to mouth so huge a foulness to thy guest. Me of Arthur's table, felon talk, let be no more, but not the less by night, the scorn of Garlon, poisoning all his rest, stung him in dreams, at length and dim through leaves, blinked the white morn, sprays grated, and old boughs whined in the wood. He rose, descended, met the scorner in the castle court, and fain, for hate and loathing, would have passed him by. But when Sir Garlon uttered mocking wise, "What wear ye still that same crown scandalous?" his countenance blackened, and his forehead veins bloated and branched, and tearing out of sheath the brand Sir Balin with a fiery ha. "So thou be shallow, here I make thee ghost." Hard upon helm smote him, and the blade flew, splintering in six, and clinked upon the stones. Then Garlon, reeling slowly backward, fell, and Balin, by the banneret of his helm, dragged him and struck. But from the castle a cry sounded across the court, and men at arms, a score with pointed lances, making at him. He dashed the pommel at the foremost face. Beneath, a low door dipped, and made his feet wings through a glimmering gallery, till he marked the portal of King Pellam's chapel wide, and inward to the wall he stepped behind, Thence, in a moment, heard them pass like wolves, howling. But while he stared about the shrine, in which he scarce could spy the Christ for saints, beheld before a golden altar lie the longest lance his eyes had ever seen, point painted red, and seizing thereupon, pushed through an open casement down, leaned on it, leapt in a semicircle, and lit on earth, then hand at ear and hearkening from what side the blindfold rummage, buried in the walls, might echo, ran the counterpath, and found his charger mounted on him, and away. An arrow whizzed to the right, one to the left, one overhead, and Palam's feeble cry, "Stay, stay him! He defileth heavenly things, with earthly uses made him quickly dive beneath the boughs and race through many a mile of dense and open, till his goodly horse, arising wearily at a fallen oak, stumbled headlong and cast him face to the ground." Half wroth, he had not ended, but all glad, knight-like, to find his charger yet unlamed. Sir Balin drew the shield from off his neck, stared at the priceless cognizance, and thought, "I have shamed thee so that now thou shamest me. Thee will I bear no more." High on a branch hung it, and turned aside into the woods, and there in the gloom cast himself all along, moaning, my violences, my violences." But now the wholesome music of the wood was dumbed by one from out the hall of Mark, a damsel errant, warbling as she rode the woodland alleys, Vivian with her squire. The fire of heaven has killed the barren cold, and kindled all the plain and all the wold. The new leaf ever pushes off the old. The fire of heaven is not the flame of hell. Old priest, who mumble worship in your choir, old monk and nun, ye scornful the world's desire, yet in your frosty cells ye feel the fire. The fire of heaven is not the flame of hell. The fire of heaven is on the dusty ways. The wayside blossoms open to the blaze. The whole wood world is one full of peal and praise. The fire of heaven is not the flame of hell. The fire of heaven is Lord of all things good.